Stay tuned for the Joan Quinn Profiles. Joan served the state of California as a member on the Arts Council and on the Film Commission. She was formerly on the Architectural Commission and fulfilled 2 terms on the Fine Arts Commission for the city of Beverly Hills. As an editor for Andy Warhol's Interview magazine, Condé Nast Publications, and the Hearst Corporation, Joan covered the world of fashion, the mysteries of food, the excitement of theater, and the international art scene. She continues to find people who are on the cutting edge of their professions. Here's Joan Quinn.
Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome to the Joan Quinn Profiles. We're taping here at the Hollywood Museum, and our guests are 2 authors, but very different. Cheryl Cecchetto writes about events and art and everything you want to hear about, her life. And Bruce Bauman is a novelist who takes the reader on a ride through drugs, jazz, art, authors, blah, 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 blah. So, welcome to Cheryl, who's an author, event planner, and she's president and founder of Sequoia Productions. She was born and raised in Canada and says she's 100% Canadian Italian. Cheryl attended York University and George Brown College in Toronto. And what is 100% Italian, not Canadian?
I think it's a combination of everything. I think my roots are very, first of all, thank you so much for having me here today.
So
this is so fun. I'm so excited to meet you and sit here and talk with you.
And you're really from Hollywood. You're really from this museum connection, right?
It's really much so. I mean, I'm from 300 miles north of Toronto. Our freeway's a bridge. I made quite a transportation. I mean, I actually started off in New York, and I was Shelley Winter's assistant.
Oh.
Yes, and then I came to New York with her, and came to LA with her, and I never left.
Oh, that was great. So we met years ago.
Years ago.
Shelley.
Yes,
exactly.
of course.
But you are going down to the Academy. You're like down Hollywood Boulevard? Is that where some of your work is?
Yes, right here at Hollywood and Highland is where we produce the Governor's Ball.
Oh,
now
it is.
For 14 years at the 5th floor, so I'm literally right across the street from you, and I've been producing the Governor's Ball for the Motion Picture Academy. I mean, please, I always tell everybody I started at the age of 10 for 26 years now.
I know. What do you do? What is producing that thing?
Well, you know, it's sort of like, I describe it like a film, but you only have one take, because events now have crossed over. It's unbelievable amount of production, light,
that's
sound.
What I mean.
I mean,
right.
The Emmys that just happened, we had Andrea Bocelli and David Foster perform. You know, it's a huge installation that takes 2-3 weeks with the amount of hardware and design and decor.
And you put it all together.
I am the event producer. I have a really strong team. You don't do anything by yourself, so, you know.
I don't want to ask you how many are on that team. It's a lot,
It's a lot when you get on site. There's 15 of us in my office, but when you get on site, let's not count the waiters. The technicians, there's a couple hundred.
I know.
But now let's count the waiters. We're over 1,000.
Is that right?
That is right. Because you've got 4,000 guests.
Oh,
so it's just huge between the entertainers, the waiters, the security. I mean, you name it. The numbers are absolutely mind-boggling.
So with all of that in mind, one of the questions that you always had, not if you're 100% Italian Canadian, is when are you going to write a book?
That was a question that came for many, many years. It took me a long time. I finally wrote it. I have to tell you, though, I thought it nearly killed me. I mean, it was easier giving birth to 2 kids.
But the book is like a memoir. It's so
is.
Great when you start in the first chapter and passion, and you create this Italian mucklucks.
That's really
Oh,
funny.
my gosh.
Funny.
What a chapter.
Well, you know,
I
know.
Who knows what mucklucks are?
They don't.
I do.
Don't. You do. And I mean, because I grew up wearing a snowsuit to school because there's so much snow. We snowmobiled to school, and I got 3 questions asked when finally we decided to roll up our sleeves and write this book. How did you get from there to here? Because that's a story.
And that was the Shelley.
That was a Shelley story. And also being an actress and having a theatrical background and working in New York and then transporting here with Shelley. Second is ideas and inspiration. Where do they come from?
Right.
Third,
we're going to ask you that.
Yes. And third is great Hollywood stories, and they're all there. Now, the 4th chapter I put in, the 4th section of it, not chapter, section of it, is giving back. Giving back. And that was really important to me. And I said to the publisher, I need this because we all need to stop and give back.
But so many people don't.
They
so
don't.
That's the chapter I haven't read yet.
Yeah.
Because
It's unbelievable.
I figured you'd tell us about it.
I say that if everyone takes care of one, we're done.
It's right, isn't it? All right, so tell me about the beginning. Tell me about passion to create. You were a young child.
Yes, very. But I always was, really, I was given such leeway with growing up with 6 girls. There was an opportunity.
You had five sisters?
5 sisters. And there was an opportunity to discover. I think one of the biggest problems right now is that we're so tied in. We're looking down at our phones. We're tied into electronics. So we, growing up in Canada, you know, there was never a play date, or you just went. You went out. You did your thing. So the world always seemed so big to me, and I embraced it. And I had parents that said, "What, do you want to be an actress? Well, do it."
Oh, I was going to say, did you want to be an actress then?
At that time, I thought, oh, that'd be a great idea. I studied in Toronto at George Brown College, moved down to New York. I was studying at the Actors Studio and met Shelley Winters.
That's where you met Shelley, at the Actors Studio?
At the Actors Studio. And she was terrific. She was.
But you were taking lessons.
I was taking lessons there.
Were you
and
on
I became
the
one of her
stage?
students. We, as interns, were allowed to go on X amount of time, but most of the time we watched the actual members. And with Shelley, I became one of her students. I became her hit girl. I was her assistant. I was her hit girl. We have so many great stories in the book of the two of us together, and I say at the end of my 4 chapters on Shelley that my father had said to me, in your lifetime, not counting family, there's going to be 5 people, 5 that are really taking a piece of your heart, and she was my thumb.
Your father said that?
Yeah.
Why would he come up with something like that?
He just really felt there's a lot of people that come and go, but there's going to be 5 people that absolutely have a huge impact on who you are and where you go, and really look and listen for that. And Shelley was that person.
So was that in Italian or in English?
Yeah.
Or French?
A little of both.
Both.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
They spoke a lot of Italian to each other, especially if they didn't want us to know what they were saying.
That's what they always say, right?
Exactly.
So then let's get to chapter 3, La La Land.
Well, when I arrived here, I was a bit in shock. I was a bit in shock with anything that had more than a bridge. I mean, New York just stunned me.
Bridge, right?
Seriously, that was it. And even in Los Angeles, a real bridge. That's it. I mean, I hadn't seen freeways. The crowds in New York were overwhelming. You know, coming from a town, growing up on a lake, it was just really different. But also, Canada gave me some phenomenal roots, because you did roll up your sleeves and do your chores. So it was very grounding. I got to Los Angeles, and I was still working here and there. I was on LA Law, on the Golden Girls.
Oh, you were acting then? You
Yes,
came?
I came here as an actress.
Okay.
I went and did Delta Force with Shelley in Israel with Menachem Golan and Lady Kazan and Lee Marvin and Chuck Norris. Oh my goodness! I can remember
Golan?
Yes,
I remember.
And Joey Bishop and they were all there. It was unbelievable. Martin Bolson, all of them. We were all in Delta Force. And how I made myself on, really, Shelley got me on that set. It was just because of the connection. So I worked here as an actress, and I was actually supporting myself as an actress, working at various events. And I was working
at events too, instead of being in a restaurant.
Yes, I would pick up shifts because therefore you had flexibility.
Right.
And I was managing the floor, the actual we call
so
the waiters.
You were
for
maitre
the
d',
academy,
right?
Yes, for the academy.
You started here.
And I was working for Ambrosia, and what happened was Ambrosia's lead didn't show up, and they would always shove me at the meetings. So I would start getting involved in the organization of this, the organization of that. Then the academy approached me directly. I didn't know what they wanted to see me about to run their events, and that's how it all started.
So Ambrosia was the caterer.
They were the caterer.
So do you still bring in a caterer?
Always, and it's Wolfgang Puck, of course.
Of course. So that's what you.
And so now I'm the overall event producer now, because
got it.
events at that time were tablecloths and flowers 26 years ago.
Exactly.
Now they're lights and sound and John Legends and Andre Bocelli's and
let's talk about that. Where are the events? You do a lot of. Well, we'll get to Sequoia. I want to I want to finish with the book. Distress. What? No. Divas, distress, and near misses.
Yeah.
What are those? That's chapter 5, right?
Nothing. Yes, but nothing actually. I use that title to to lure in the reader, but really. Nothing was a disaster. There were some near disasters. I've lost power for 11 minutes.
Oh, so there.
The Cinderella chapter is fantastic about the fish in my arrangements. It started jumping out of the tanks 20 minutes before the guests were finished watching the telecast and were coming into the ball, how I had to handle that. So there's definitely some hilarious stories that the world wouldn't believe.
We need someone like you with all this energy, because who else can handle it? It's like you're flying through that area, right?
You have to have a lot of energy. You have to know that you're very much of service.
So passion to create. The last chapter we'll talk about is 6, which is some of my favorites.
Some of my favorite moments, and I'll tell you one of them. I have a lot of favorites, but I do have one when we besides the Emmys and the Oscars, we produce a lot of personal events, weddings, bar mitzvahs, bat mitzvahs, but we also do a lot of openings, building openings.
But small, these are small compared to what you do.
Oh, they could be, but we did the Griffith Observatory opening.
Oh, that was big.
Big, beautiful. We did the CHLA opening, UCSF in San Francisco, but one of my favorite moments was a young boy, a young patient at CHLA, and I wanted to feature one patient. I asked him, what do you love? Because I wanted to make him part of the program, and he said he loved to tap dance. So I created 3 minutes of music. I said, come on stage. I want you to tap dance around the podium, jump on an apple box, and just tell everyone. And what he did was, my name is Alex. I have titanium ribs. I've had 27 operations, and I love to tap dance. And it's because of CHLA I'm here. Well, he brought down the house. It was such a beautiful moment. Such a beautiful moment. Billy Crystal was next on stage. The first thing he said is, number 1, where's my apple box?
Oh, right.
And then he said, and ladies and gentlemen, the host of next year's Oscars, Alex Odo.
Oh,
it was...
How great.
It
is.
The standing ovation.
It is.
For him, and why we produce events, and what we have to say. And I have to tell you something, Joan, I want to say that I feel a lot of times when I read the tabloids around the world that so many celebrities get such a bad rap. And we're all looking for what's wrong and what they're doing wrong. I'm at so many events where they're doing right.
That's what's so good.
Yes, and that's
you can take them, and you can take them to the hospital because they want to do something for you.
Yes.
And then they know they're doing something for children.
Yes.
Which is great.
Eric Stone Street was the MC for that event. There's so many great moments that I get to work with amazing philanthropists who are, I understand they're high profile, but they really are the ambassadors of the world, and there's so much good going on. I think the world reads too quickly what's not going right.
And I think that's probably the reason that you started your Sequoia Productions. Why Sequoia?
Well, first of all, my sister picked the name because it's got every vowel.
Oh,
who knew?
She picked it?
My sister did, and she said, "You're like a tree, Cheryl. You're gonna keep going 100 miles an hour. You're like a sequoia, and then you're just gonna drop dead."
Oh, like a sequoia tree.
Drop dead. But then I thought to myself, well, that's kind of a cool name because when you think about it, yes, maybe I'm the trunk, but the tree has many branches.
And that's part of the production?
Yes, and a really great question, Joan. Why did I start Sequoia?
Yes,
I started Sequoia because, first of all, I fell in love with the event business. My theatrical background was perfect for designing stage, for casting, for directing. We do a lot of live shows also. We've got coming up very, very shortly, Good Day USA, a lot of live shows. I started Sequoia because I wanted to work in an environment and wanted to develop a culture that supported each other, loved each other. People wanted to go to work. There was a certain atmosphere and a work ethics that I wanted to establish.
So can you teach that group of people around you that ethic that you have?
I hope
Does it work?
It does work. I pass it on as much as I can. If a client's being difficult, I say to them often, are you making this decision for you or me or for the event?
That's what I wanted to know too. The ideas, do they come from the clients? Do they come from you? What kind of clients, give you freedom? What kind of clients stick their little fingers in
They
you?
come from everywhere, and wherever it comes, it comes. It doesn't have to be my idea. Jeffrey Kurland, right now, Oscar-nominated costume designer, has come up with a brilliant vision for this year's ball. We are running with it. We'll lead to it.
Great.
And even if I come up with an idea, my client will tailor it, or a vendor will add to it. So it comes from several places. Now, I personally, because I grew up before the invention of fax machines and cell phones and all of that.
Didn't we?
Didn't we? So I feel like our generation really is grounded. We see things. We lift our heads. We're still going to bookstores. So people ask me, where do you get inspiration? Lift up your head and look around.
And that's it. And you can get it everywhere. You know everything about Hollywood. Do you keep your ears to the grindstone?
I know a lot about Hollywood. I have to say that if something is difficult, I don't find my way there. I tend to bring out the best in the person and in the situation, and I always try to empower everybody to, why are we here, folks? Really, why are we here? When I'm interviewing someone, or they're interviewing me, I should really say.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm actually interviewing the client thinking, do I want to spend a year and hopefully 20 years with them. Because they become my friend, I become their partner, we roll up our sleeves no matter what. Here's a great example. Jerry Ann McIntosh from Warner Brothers has been my chair off and on for the Emmys. She found me 18 years ago. 18 years ago. This woman's brilliant. When Andre Bocelli came our way to perform at the Emmys this year, we knew we were going out on a limb. We didn't know if it would work. We didn't know if anybody would stop and listen. We didn't know a lot of things, but we rolled up our sleeves, locked arms, and moved forward. And I swear, when he started singing, we looked at each other and we said, now we know.
This is it.
You can hear a pin drop.
And Cheryl, this was it.
This was it.
Passion to create.
Passion to create.
Thank you
what
so
is
much.
Your passion? Oh my God, it's my pleasure, Joan. Thank you for having me here. Thank you so much. And I'm glad you enjoyed the book.
Don't go away. We'll be right back with Bruce Bauman. Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome back to the Joan Quinn Profiles. We're taping at the Hollywood Museum on Highland Avenue in the heart of Hollywood, and I'm with Bruce Bauman, who was born and raised in New York, graduated from New York University with a degree in history. He's an award-winning author. He's an instructor at Cal Arts in the Fine Arts, in the Master Program. And it's the writing program.
It's the Critical Studies writing program.
Yeah, he's been published in newspapers, magazines, and numerous anthologies. And you've traveled a lot all over the world. So did you start traveling when you just got out of New York University or before?
I went to undergrad school at George Washington University. I went to graduate school at NYU, got a master's degree in history. I started traveling when I was 21. When I graduated when I was 21, I got a job in advertising as a junior copywriter right out of school, starting like June. And in late August of that year, they were sending a whole bunch of people to do a catalog shoot in London. I talked my way into being the gopher for everybody. I got a free ticket. Stayed at the Plaza Athenaeum. I'd never stayed at a hotel like that in my life growing up in Queens. And after 1 week there, we finished, or maybe 10 days, finished 2 catalogs. I quit.
That was smart. And you stayed in London?
I went to London, I went to Paris, I went to Portugal, I went all over Europe. I knew I was going to do that. My parents were furious at me. When I came home, they really gave me a lot of grief. 30 years later, my mother actually said to me, "That was really cool what you did. I was really proud of you, but I couldn't tell you."
Oh, she couldn't tell you until 30 years later. But you had a degree in history. What were you going to do? Were you going to teach? Were you going to write?
I never knew what I was going to do. I had no idea that I would ever teach. I was not a great student, but I learned a lot from not being a great student on how to teach.
I think that's really the thing. You don't have to be a great student you just have to get through college so that you could say you've gotten to that point, right?
Right, and at NYU, I was in the PhD program for history, and I quit after my master's, realizing at that point I would never get a job in a teaching college history. I was too weird.
So when you went to London, you really didn't go to write. When did you first start getting published?
I was always writing.
Oh, were you?
Oh,
so
yeah.
were you being published at that time?
No, I was soon after I was being published.
And what did you get published?
Mainly a couple of short stories in no longer non-existent literary magazines, and in a rock and roll magazine called the Trouser Press, which was a big fanzine, and they're not in existence anymore, but they did the Trouser Press guides.
So it was about music.
Yeah.
So you've kind of always been into music rather than history.
No, history was like when I was in college, there were no courses in rock and roll.
So you couldn't have.
And history was something I'd always been good in. I'd done very well on the college thing, GREs for history, and I didn't have to think about it because it was memory, because they really didn't ask you to do analysis.
Were you in a band? Were you in a rock band?
No, I can't sing. I can't do anything.
No, can you play? Did you manage a band?
No. I just went to thousands and thousands of concerts.
That's how you were so involved.
I knew a lot of people in bands. I knew people who were serious critics. Some of my good friends, Ira Robbins, he's still a critic, Dave Schultz. They still work at it.
Oh, but
decades
critics,
later.
yeah. Did you ever do that?
Yeah, that's what I was doing for the Trouser Press. I wrote one of the first, I did one of the first interviews with the band Television with Tom Verlaine, which is, they started CBGB's.
Right.
He built the stage.
So that was in the late 70s?
Yes.
Oh, wow. So you've been really working at it. And now it's appearing in your Broken Sleep book.
Right.
So, but before you wrote Broken Sleep, you wrote another book.
Yeah, I wrote another book called Down the Word Was, which takes place in New York and New Delhi in India.
Did you go to India?
Yeah, I won a UNESCO Ashburg Fellowship, which sent me there for 4 months. And it was great. And that's where I really wrote quite a bit of the first novel there. I had the idea for it. I had to.
What was that story?
That story is a lot of what I do is based on mythology, and that story was based on the Abraham-Isaac sacrifice myth, and also an Indian child sacrifice myth.
Like combined. Were you a Bible scholar?
No.
Then I'm
obsessed with the Bible, but I was basically kicked out of Hebrew school.
But did you learn it in Hebrew school?
Some of it, but I became much more involved. I consider the Old Testament and the New Testament different, but two of the greatest books ever written, and I look at them as great novels.
Oh, so that's great if you can read it like a novel. Do you fill in the spaces?
Oh, I fill in the space. That's the whole point of filling in the spaces.
That's right. That's the way to understand it all. One thing you teach in the MFA program at Cal Arts, right?
Yes.
How do they get into that program?
They apply, and if they're good, they get in.
But who knows if they're good? How do you know?
Nobody knows. The whole, I don't know how much I want to get into the whole MFA thing, because I have very mixed emotions about it. I think it helps, but I think a lot of people shouldn't be there, and more specifically should not be there when they're there. The idea of going to a graduate school in writing can really help a talented student, but the key is going when it can help you.
Oh, at the right time.
At the right time
Okay.
is essential.
So what do you teach them then?
Well, I mean, you teach
If you have a good student and you think it's the right time, what do you teach?
Well, you can't. Look, I use this example. I tried out for my junior high school basketball team, and I was not very good, and my coach was very nice in saying, I can't make you tall.
Well, you can't make a writer. I agree.
No, that's it, and it's the same. There are people who come in with a great deal of talent, and the most talented, the best thing you could do is just guide them gently and stay out of their way. The people who are pretty talented, you can help the most. And
but do you help them like get agents or know how to go about the business?
I do that. There's not enough of that in all graduate schools. There's not enough. Columbia may be one of the only ones, but
because that's really necessary, isn't it? People don't know where to go once they've gotten all these degrees. Just like we're saying, not that you can't get through school, but you have to have some kind of help.
You need help and you need luck. I've gotten a number of my former students jobs with agents, which helps you get an agent, and I've tried to help others. I mean, I've tried to help. I hope this does not come off wrong, but I've tried to help quite a number of people, and my success rate is not real high.
Is that right? But that's another story. Let's talk about Broken Sleep.
Okay.
But it is, but I see the problem, and there are problems, right?
I mean, I'll just say one thing about this. Agents get hundreds and hundreds of manuscripts, and they take, last thing on this, and then I'd rather talk about the book.
Yeah.
I had a short story in a really good literary magazine 10 years ago, and in the introduction, the editor wrote, we get 100 stories a week for 36 weeks, and we take 4.
Oh, so there you are.
That's all you need to know.
And that's exactly what you need to know. All right, so Broken Sleep, your second novel.
Yes.
Tell me what the title means.
It's a metaphor as well as an actuality. I've had sleep problems my entire life. I still have them. So where I sleep for a few hours, I wake up. I've had screaming nightmares. But I also have great, great ideas that come out of my dreams. And it's also a metaphor for our present situation. I think America is asleep.
In the world, and it's broken.
And it's broken.
And it's broken. So, do you keep a diary when you wake up of your dreams?
Yeah, I've kept a diary since I'm 14.
Oh, of everything. But this is like when you wake up.
I don't. Look, I have a diary where I'm complaining. This girl wouldn't go out with me, or
Right.
like the Mets lost.
Right.
But then there's a whole other one that is all about. It's more notebooks that are all about writing. Then I have ideas from years ago that get used now. I thought up the Insatials band. I didn't think it up. It came to me in a dream. And the character of Ambitious Minds, came to me in dreams when I was in my 20s. We're talking many years ago.
I got it. I see. So when I started reading, I felt like I was kind of disjointed. I was like waiting for it all to pull together. Is that what you wanted to happen?
Yes.
Oh, good.
I mean, it should start to flow fairly soon.
Yeah.
But the opening chapter, the opening chapter is a Salome Savant chapter where there's an art happening where somebody dies, and then you have a next one that doesn't seem connected with Moses, where he's
exactly.
finding out.
You keep getting like these things going about.
And they, hopefully you start to see the connections, and you're intrigued, and you keep going.
And we have 3 books. Let's just talk about the colors. Why are they in 3 different colors? Pink, blue, and green.
Well, I mean, that was Terry Akers, who was my editor, suggested that. And I was really, really happy with it. But it's also based on the fact that Salome is a visual artist, and in the book, there is a Salvant blue and a Salvant red.
And that's part of the story. That's one of the characters. And Savant, that's kind of off-putting too.
Really?
Yeah, the name. How'd you come up with that?
It's a real name, and it's also fiction. You come up. I mean, there is an actor who was in I forget the series with Desperate Housewives. His last name for real is Savant.
Savant, yeah. So how did you get these characters? Let's talk about. There's one character, Ricky McFinn.
Right, and who becomes Ambitious Mindswallow.
So do they have 2 names all the way along?
Not all of them, but he.
What does he do?
He's the bass player in the Insatiables. He's from Queens. He was Ricky McFinn, and that name came out of Huck Finn.
Was he Moses?
No, Moses is Moses.
Moses is Moses.
He's the only one. He does not have 2 names. He's got one.
So does Ricky play with the Insatiables?
Yeah, he's the bass player.
He's the bass player. And so where'd the Insatiables come from?
I just came out of my imagination.
And what music are you influenced by? Because I went to Book Soup where you had a signing, and you've done signings from New York all the way across the country, I know, at great bookstores. And we love bookstores.
Yes, we do.
And I think you said John Coltrane.
Coltrane was one, but it goes, I mean, I did something for a website, Large Hearted Boy, where I picked songs for each of the characters, and say for Salome, it's Marlene Dietrich.
Oh, right. And then somebody asked you, because I was there for the Q&A, who is Marlene? Have you ever met her? Right?
No, yeah, and also Greta Garbo, because Garbo is a big thing.
Right.
But Greta Garbo is the mother of Salome.
So that works into it. So they wanted to know if you had met, Greta Garbo.
Right.
So before we leave, it's very art-oriented. There's a lot of art. Your wife, Susan Woodruff, is an artist whom we've had on the show, and she's fantastic. Did she do your shirt?
Yes, she did.
Show us a little bit. Tell us. It's like, she does a lot of splattery, doesn't she?
Yeah, well, for this she did, because it's also, there's a gunshot.
Oh, okay. You're giving everything away.
Well, no. People can read it, hopefully. They don't know what the gunshot is.
We don't know yet, but it's pretty interesting. I love the way it takes a few chapters to come together, but it does come together.
Yeah, I hope so.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bruce.
Okay.
Keep writing to JAQUINN1@AOL.com, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Joan.